Peace. It's your boy Big Craig. And, I just want to talk about hip hop for a minute, particularly Tupac and Glasses Malone, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre. Just want to talk about that whole era for a minute. You know, off the top of my head, I don't do this for money. I don't do this for I don't work for no radio station or no record company or no internet label. Ain't backing this. This is just off the dome, and this is just because I love hip hop, and I'm probably way more knowledgeable about hip hop than the people who are in the industry. I'm one of them brothers that never really, got affiliated with none of these companies because they compromise hip hop. They don't respect hip hop in its purest form. I'm what you call the purest form of hip hop. So here we go. Man, I know y'all seen that brother Glasses Malone and his video, Tupac Must Die. That struck a chord with me, man. It struck a chord so much that I wanted to do a video just putting my opinion out there online, so I can, set the record straight, as far as what happened with the interview with the Breakfast Club, because I saw that too, because I wanted to hear his logic behind all of this. So, first off, I want to congratulate him on making a concept so dope. Outside of the fact that it's talking about Tupac, that's a dope concept, and he really made a song has already hit the emotion of most Tupac fans and people who just want to know, like, man, what was you thinking? And that's what hip hop is about. Hip hop is about, creating those moments that's like either you jamming, it's a party song, rocking, or it's something that hit your heart or your mind and make you feel like, man, what was this person thinking when they did that record? So when I saw that video for Tupac Must Die, man, and just trying to tap into his brain as an MC, that's a piece of art, to rap from the perspective of Orlando Anderson, and then when they interview him, he talks about, like, yeah, people forget that Orlando Anderson had a family, he had loved ones too, and that his logic for allegedly, what happened to Tupac is that, man, he was jumped, and in California, retaliation is a must when somebody jumps you. It don't matter who they are. It don't matter what, the circumstances are. If somebody put their hands on you, you must retaliate. I can relate to that because in my neighborhood, that's how we were. If somebody hit you, we was taught that from shorty. Somebody hit you, you hit them back. It don't matter who they is or what their stature is. They put their hands on you, you got to get back at them. With that being said, he went on to Big Boy. I saw him on Big Boy, and that was just a bunch of arguing. Well, not arguing, but it was kind of more like, one of the co-hosts on the show, I believe, she was just kind of more emotional about it. The Breakfast Club, on the other hand, they took a more logical approach behind it, and they asked all the right questions, and he gave all the right answers. Again, he rapped from the perspective of Orlando Anderson. He said he was affected by that on that Orlando Anderson side because he got a bunch of mutual friends on that side. So he wanted to represent that side of it. Not that he was taking any sides, but he wanted to just speak from the perspective of Orlando Anderson, a person who was jumped, who then retaliated. And unfortunately to us, we all know Tupac. We all are fans of Tupac. So, this story has been, since 1996, one of the biggest, unsolved mysteries for anybody who's a fan of Tupac or was a fan of Biggie. This is like 50% of it now resolved because artists and people who are involved are openly talking about this. Keefy D was just on Vlad TV again. I don't know why people talk to Vlad. Why is he the person to talk to about, stuff that's going on in hip hop? You know, I don't think I don't understand why people talk to him. Why he wouldn't just go on Breakfast Club and talk to them, or somebody who's just not trying to exploit the hip hop culture or exploit the street culture like Vlad does. But neither here nor there. So on to the Breakfast Club interview with your boy Glasses Malone. They asked him all the right questions, and there's only one part of that interview that I had a problem with, is when Glasses Malone said that Tupac was nowhere near Snoop Dogg as far as when it comes to success. So I just, the Breakfast Club disagreed, and I'm pretty sure most people on the outside looking in, they probably feel like Tupac surpassed Snoop Dogg, right? And I used to always have this conversation with my homies, about this very same subject. And 85% of it I agree with Malone. Snoop Dogg was the biggest thing moving in hip hop and probably still is. But let me correct the Breakfast Club. And I feel like I'm the only one qualified to do this because I feel like I'm more hip hop than them. And I feel like, I'm probably more hip hop than Glasses Malone. And this is just me being outside, me being a dude from the Midwest. I'm not biased when I talk about these things because I'm not from LA. I'm not from Compton. I'm not from New York. I'm not, under some thumb of a company telling me what I can and can't post. So if you go back to 1991, let's start there. See, the Breakfast Club and Glasses Malone, they kept referencing 93, Snoop Dogg and all of that. But what they should have been focusing on, if they were really knowledgeable about hip hop, they should have been focusing on 1991 when Deep Cover dropped. That was the day hip hop really changed its whole course. Because you think from 90 backwards, you're dealing with Big Daddy Kane, you're dealing with, NWA, which was breaking up at the time, you're dealing with, a bunch of, the East Coast bosses at that time, Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, Public Enemy, that was, Self-Destruction was, that was kind of the vibe then. Ice Cube was popping, but Snoop Dogg took it to another level, starting with Deep Cover. That's the whole sound changed. I mean, that was what they call the cavi flow, I believe. That whole sound changed. The whole direction of hip hop changed when Deep Cover dropped. And he had a different type of flow. Dre had a different type of production. So that Snoop Dogg buzz started then, and it was big. The anticipation started then. Everybody wanted that album then. They wanted that album before the Chronic. They wanted Snoop to drop his album then. The buzz was already building. Now fast forward to 92, December 15th, the Chronic dropped. Snoop didn't disappoint. G-Thing come out, it's a monster. Ain't no record bigger than that at the time. G-Thing was off the chain. And, it was one of them records that once again, put Snoop Dogg in the light of that he just was popping. So when the Chronic album dropped, totally different than from what NWA had going. Dre looking good again. Dre, supplants his status as the best producer in hip hop, and he had the best crew. Snoop Dogg and the Dog Pound, they solidified that. Whatever was going on at Ruthless was out of sight, out of mind at that point. And that buzz for Snoop Dogg was out of there. Like from that point on until that album dropped, nothing was bigger than Snoop Dogg. If you mention his name in an interview, an article, you wasn't getting no feature, because back in 93, 92, 91, you only really rock with the people that you really rock with. It ain't like 2019 where if I came out with an album And as long as it's on a real, as long as it's on the industry platform, then I can get a collaboration with anybody I want. If I'm outside of that platform, then no, I got to keep it, about whatever I got to work with what I got. But if I'm on the platform of the industry, then I could probably get Drake, Lil Wayne, Snoop Dogg, anybody who's in that whole little bubble that's in that industry. But back then, it wasn't like that. 93, you had to be with your crew, and that's it. You had to rock with your crew. You ain't have collaborations all crazy like that. So that buzz was through the roof, and anything Snoop Dogg was on, if he was on the cover of a Source or he was on the cover of a magazine, that magazine was selling out. So back to what Glasses Malone was saying, he's referencing that time that when, that whole Death Row reign was crazy. And if you was affiliated with Death Row, right off the bat, your status goes up. So when Tupac came to Death Row, yeah, he did benefit from that platform, because at the time, Death Row didn't need you, so Tupac probably benefited more off of signing to Death Row than Death Row benefited off of having him. It just so happened that when he came, he did what he had to do. He elevated it like he said he would. So when Breakfast Club is saying, man, Pac was bigger, yeah, he was. But at the same time, Snoop foundation on Death Row was so huge from 91, and I'm going to say all the way up to, 96 when he left, or 97 when he left. That was a remarkable time for Snoop Dogg, man. I mean, and if there was video and pictures that can show the hype around his album, selling 870,000 the first week, coming back selling another 800,000 the second week, to show that it wasn't no fluke, man. I mean, like, dude, what he did, man, was I never seen that happen again. I mean, it has happened, but to me, all of that stuff was more manufactured by the industry, those hypes. When Drake drop an album, the industry is pushing that, making it look like the people is demanding this album. I really think when Doggy Style came out, it got to the point where the people, there was no internet at the time, but the people was just like going so crazy for that album. I think that the record company took that album and made it come out, because Dre was still trying to fine tune it, still perfecting it, but it still came out and it was a work of art. So, I'm just saying, listening to that Breakfast Club interview and that debate about whether, Snoop Dogg or Tupac was bigger than Snoop Dogg, yeah, Tupac became bigger because, the controversy and all of that. I mean, that started to take over. Them brothers was really trying to show that they was, the 90s was a time where artists really wanted to prove that they was living the stuff that they rapped about. So with Snoop Dogg, murder was the case situation, and Tupac, in the East-West situation. Now we in the Midwest watching this. This is why it's important, because if you from the West Coast or you from the East Coast, you got a bona fide Midwest boss right here telling you how we was viewing all of this stuff when we was going down. We ain't really care about none of that personal stuff, because we had our own stuff going on up here. Now, it's a good soundtrack to the streets, but we ain't really care about none of that. It's a good soundtrack when we bumping, when we in the whip, we bumping the music, and it fit whatever mood we in at that time. But we ain't really care about no East Coast, West Coast, nothing, man. So to us, Pac was just one of them cats that was super versatile. He was super versatile to us, and we was jamming with Pac because he really had a song for any type of mood you was in, and so, when you look at it like that, yeah, he became more bigger than Snoop, because Snoop didn't have a song for every mood like Pac did. Biggie didn't have a song for every mood like Pac did. So to us in the Midwest, that's why Pac gets rated higher over people like that. Now, people on the West Coast might have felt like, man, he not really from these neighborhoods and all that. We really didn't care about that. All we knew was, man, dude signed with Death Row at a time when Death Row, when you couldn't rock with Death Row like that. Death Row didn't need you. They already had Dre, Snoop, The Pound, Corrupt, one of the coldest lyricists all time. Daz, he was cold. Lady of Rage, we looking at RBX, DOC. We already looking. I mean, that's like, Pac was like Kevin Durant when he left OKC to come to the Warriors. You know what I'm saying? It's like Death Row was already established, but we appreciated that because we felt like, man, when Drake get on them beats, man, how much more crazy is this label finna get? So because we weren't really thinking about none of that personal stuff. So when I'm listening to the Breakfast Club talk about was Pac bigger, yeah, but at the same time, man, Snoop was still young. Snoop could have, Snoop, he elevated. Look at him now. I mean, the man is probably like, he one of the richest in the game right now, so he did what he was supposed to do, and ain't nothing wrong with Snoop legacy, you know what I'm saying? So it's arguable, but why argue? They both great. They both accomplished something that probably nobody else will accomplish. Only thing that's, it's unfortunate that we lost Pac and that we lost a Biggie, you know what I'm saying? But, them brothers, those three, they really the three kings, you know what I'm saying? It's really nothing like what they've done. So in a way, you could compare, and that's why I feel like Glass and Malone kind of did have something against Pac, because it's like, it's not even, it shouldn't even be compared. They both, even though they comparable, they still accomplished two different things that nobody, else will accomplish. Snoop Dogg should have been rapper of the decade in the 90s, because that buzz that he had from 91 till 93 to when Doggy Style dropped, and maybe all the way up to, when Dog Pound album, right? I would say all the way up until All Eyes on Me. That's when Snoop, kind of leveled off with Pac. They both was kind of like at equal stature then. But like Malone said, Pac kind of benefited off of that, But to say that he wasn't close to Snoop, that ain't true, because he kind of took that baton. Like I said, when Kevin Durant came to the Warriors, they won 2 more championships. You know what I'm saying? He didn't come there and disappoint. He came there and he elevated what Death Row had going on. And it would have been interesting to see how much more they could have accomplished if they would have kept that all together, man. And fate wouldn't have had it that Pac was gonna run into Orlando on that day. Again, that's something that the cycle of life can only know why that happened, how that happened. But for that time being, man, Death Row was unstoppable, and it didn't look like they was gonna slow down if they could have kept that unit together. Big Craig, peace.